Chapter 107 to 109. Raindrops fell on the kunai as Yuto wiped it dry with a cloth. This was a humid land. If one didn't take care of their tools, the blades would quickly rust. "Vice Commander," a subordinate called out. "Terajima, he's not going to make it." Yuto turned around to look at Terajima Ichiki, who was slumped over another shinobi's back. In the original story, he didn't even have a name. His nose was crushed into his skull, his face shattered, classic blunt force trauma. Iwagakure's earth release was heavy and fierce, and it was a miracle Terajima had survived this long after taking a hit to the face. Despite Yuto's training under Tsunade, which gave him significant expertise in medical ninjutsu, there was nothing he could do for such injuries. Under the watchful eyes of his comrades, Terajima gradually stopped breathing. He was the 16th shinobi to die in this squad. "Take care of him. Seal his body in a scroll," Yuto ordered softly. His subordinates efficiently handled Terajima's remains, redistributed his tools, and moved on. War numbs people, leaving no time for grief. This was Yuto's second month in Amegakure, and his fifth mission leading Konoha Shinobi as deputy commander. Amegakure was the world's most brutal meat grinder. Even well-trained shinobi from the Land of Fire suffered a casualty rate of 20% on each mission. Traps and enemies were everywhere. You might lean against a tree for a moment's rest, only to trigger an explosive tag, resulting in a lifelong disability. Or you might offer food to a crying little girl, only to be attacked by her kunai, her eyes filled with hatred. Yuto began to understand why, in the original story, Nagato's parents were killed by Konoha. War had filled everyone's hearts with hatred and killing, making calm judgment rare. Breaking the chain of hatred was easier said than done. When faced with the enemy who killed your loved ones, most people would think, "I have to kill them, even if it means biting them to death." Terajima's death didn't slow the march. Yuto's mission was to sweep and clear the control zone, eliminating enemy squads and outposts within a 100-mile radius of the Konoha camp. This mission required strong reconnaissance and combat abilities. As a Byakugan user and Konoha's lone lion, Yuto was the best candidate. After Terajima's death, the mission continued. With more Konoha shinobi falling, the squad completed the sweep and returned to the camp. 24 shinobi died in this mission, a casualty rate of 30%, higher than usual. A few days ago, they were ambushed by Iwagakure's explosion core. Thanks to Yuto's fast-moving lion's fang, they managed to eliminate the enemy. Returning to camp, Minato was still out fighting. The Flying Thunder God technique was crucial for Konoha, dramatically increasing individual combat power and enabling rapid multiple-on-one situations. The battlefield needed Minato. With Minato absent, Yuto had to shoulder the responsibility of deputy commander. He massaged his temples and handled paperwork until nightfall when the yellow flash returned, exhausted. "Yuto-kun, thank you for your hard work." "I'm sorry," Minato said with a tired smile. "I could have returned before sunset, but I got word that a supply unit was trapped by Tsunagakure, and I had to help them." "I understand, Minato-senpai," Yuto replied, shaking his head. "Yuto, you should rest. I'll handle the paperwork. We need to push the village to send another deputy commander. The attacks from Tsunagakure and Iwagakure are getting fiercer, and something's happening in Amegakure too. It's getting more chaotic. I think Kakashi would be a good choice." "He's an excellent shinobi you trained, Minato-senpai." "He's still young and needs more experience, ha ha ha." Yuto returned to his quarters and finally lay down comfortably. The situation in Amegakure was at a stalemate. None of the major powers had found a breakthrough and were throwing lives into the conflict. For the past month, Yuto had barely had a moment to breathe, fighting, handling paperwork, squeezing in training. His time was fully occupied. There was also the matter of the Akatsuki. Konan had represented the Akatsuki, suggesting peace talks to Konoha. Yuto had reported this to Minato and the third Hokage. As expected, the report went nowhere. No one, including Yuto, took the suggestion seriously. Yahiko's proposal was a way to end the war, but the Akatsuki lacked the power to make it happen. To force the great nations of fire, wind, and earth to sign a peace treaty required both charisma and immense strength. The Akatsuki had the determination but not the strength to make everyone comply. In the future, Naruto would have the power but not the courage and determination to completely change the twisted world. Konan didn't give up, though. She wasn't foolish. Seeing Konoha's lack of interest, she maintained contact with Yuto, discussing various topics and keeping the communication channel open. Yuto went with the flow. He wasn't sure how far along the preparations for the moon god encirclement were. He couldn't intervene. Danzo and Hanzo's trap to destroy the Akatsuki would happen after Obito Uchiha was saved by Madara, which was next year. Yuto felt there was plenty of time to prepare. No need to rush. He lay in bed, planning to rest a bit before going out to train. But before he could close his eyes, he was called up again. Scratching his head, Yuto reluctantly followed his subordinate to Minato's office. Danzo was there with Minato, whose face looked grim, while Danzo remained calm and handed Yuto an order. "The Hokage has assigned you to be my vice and join others on a high-risk mission." Yuto was slightly taken aback, but replied, "Understood, as the Hokage commands. From now on, you're part of the Special Operations Unit. The mission briefing is in 5 hours." "Yes," Yuto said, rubbing the order. "Can I know the mission details now to prepare in advance?" "The details will be revealed at the briefing. But as my vice, you do need more information." Danzo paused before continuing. "We're helping Amegakure quell a rebellion and eliminate the evil organization known as the Akatsuki. Due to my intervention, the plot has changed somewhat. The time when Hanzo and Danzo conspired to kill Yahiko was moved up by an entire year." Yuto had this thought. The inertia of the world line, or the predetermined trajectory of fate, is indeed difficult to alter. He sighed silently, nodded slightly, and stepped aside. In the next few hours, Yuto got some rare rest. Danzo, a swift and decisive man when in action, had mobilized the ANBU and Root, along with many frontline shinobi of Konoha, using the third Hokage's approval. This was another deviation from the original storyline. In the original world line, Danzo only brought members of the ANBU. However, whether in the original story or reality, Hiruzen had agreed to Danzo's military action to help Amegakure suppress the rebellion. Establishing a cooperative relationship with Hanzo the Salamander was one of Konoha's recognized diplomatic strategies. Securing Amegakure's assistance on the battlefield could potentially crush Tsunagakure and Iwagakure in one go. A few hours later, the combat meeting officially began. Yuto stood against the wall, arms folded, listening to Danzo outline his plan. "Amegakure has an organization called Akatsuki, intending to overthrow Hanzo. Of course, this has nothing to do with us in Konoha. However, Hanzo has exchanged letters with the third Hokage, promising to help Konoha on the battlefield and form an alliance with us. As for the Akatsuki organization, it is composed of evil individuals who sell information and incite rebellion. Its leader, Yahiko, is our primary target today, but he is extremely intelligent." Yuto laughed inwardly at Danzo's words. They were eloquently crafted, justifying his actions both publicly and privately, making it seem like Konoha would be dishonored if the Akatsuki wasn't eradicated. Fortunately, Amegakure has obtained a bait. The boy furrowed his brow slightly, an image of the beautiful purple-haired woman flashing in his mind. Slaughtering an organization required every second to count. The end of the combat meeting signaled the start of the operation. The temporarily assembled Konoha Special Forces, totaling 142 shinobi, left the camp, heading towards a megakure in the drizzle. Apart from a few masked ANBU and Root members, most were frontline shinobi of Konoha. They didn't enter a megakure through the main gate, but instead delved into the underground buildings along a massive abandoned pipeline. After a few hundred meters, they encountered the heavily guarded Amegakure shinobi. Hanzo the salamander sat in a wide chair. By his side, Konan was tied up with her hands bound, showing no reaction to the outside world. Danzo. Hanzo nodded. You brought more people than I expected. Because you said the Akatsuki has some powerful individuals. That red-haired guy seems to be a remnant of the Uzumaki clan. Hanzo the salamander reached out, gripping Konan's chin and lifting her face. But with her here, the Akatsuki won't cause any trouble. Hanzo's fingers were like iron pincers, making Konan wince in pain. She opened her eyes and saw the fully armed Konoha and Amegakure shinobi. The next moment, she widened her eyes and gritted her teeth and shouted, "Kill me!" Hanzo followed Konan's gaze, seeing a white-eyed boy with a black bandage wrapped around his right arm, staring coldly at him. That outfit, Lone Lion. Hanzo turned to Danzo. Does your Konoha lion know the leader of the Akatsuki? It seems so. Danzo glanced at Yuto, saying calmly, There is no problem, right? I hope past relationships won't affect today's operation. Yuto snorted. This time he didn't hide his displeasure. Anyone could hear it. He knew this was Danzo's way of giving him a warning. Yuto had stayed with the Akatsuki for a month, and with Nagato's help, he had completed the lion's fang bite. Danzo knew about this. Saying it out loud was meant to suppress and warn. This was a clear message to Yuto. Even though Hiruzen Sarutobi asked you to be my vice, you're not qualified to interfere with the operation. If something goes wrong, I can easily make you the scapegoat. Yuto shrugged, indifferently. Of course, I am always a shinobi of Konoha and will naturally obey the village's orders. However, he paused, his voice very calm. Danzo-sama, please always remember that you are talking to the vice commander of the Western Front. Arrogant brat. A Root member with a dog-face mask sneered and stepped forward. Unexpectedly, as he moved, many Konoha frontline shinobi instinctively tensed, staring at him. In an instant, the underground pipeline of Amegakure was filled with tension. Anbu, or Root members, and frontline warriors were all Konoha shinobi, but as a long-standing powerhouse, Konoha had its own internal distinctions. The Western Front shinobi didn't care about Danzo. Even with the Hokage's order, they would instinctively side with their vice commander. Danzo's hand inside his sleeve clenched tightly, suppressing his anger. After Orochimaru left Konoha, Danzo's collaboration with him was discovered by the third Hokage. Fortunately, this hadn't become widely known and could still be negotiated. Hiruzen protected Danzo, but also gradually distanced himself from him, discussing many matters only with Koharu and Homura. Danzo couldn't tolerate being pushed out of the village's power center, so he tried to regain trust and prove his indispensability to Konoha. Alliance with Amegakure, destroy the Akatsuki, was Danzo's plan. Initially, he intended to bring only ANBU and Root members, but after Orochimaru's escape, he decided to be more cautious. Thus, along with ANBU members, the Western Front's frontline shinobi were also mobilized. He even used the Hokage's order to obtain a Flying Thunder God kunai. This was why Minato's face looked displeased in the camp. For this operation, Danzo had put everything on the line, offending many people. Nin, patience is essential, Danzo reminded himself, waving off the Root member. The tense atmosphere gradually eased. Hanzo the salamander exhaled deeply. He didn't want to see Konoha's internal conflict either. If the Lone Lion went berserk, throwing an explosive tag and fleeing, everyone would suffer. Konan looked at Yuto's cold face, her heart sinking. She understood that despite their relationship, the branch family boy was still a Konoha shinobi. Even Jiraiya-sensei would stand with the village at this moment, Conan thought despairingly. After this small incident, neither Hanzo nor Danzo wanted to wait any longer. When an Amegakure shinobi returned with news, Hanzo's eyes gleamed, and he stood up, saying, "Yahiko took the bait. He went to that valley as agreed. Let's go." Amegakure and Konoha shinobi left the pipeline together, taking a shortcut to the destination. It was a valley, flat in the middle with towering cliffs around, secluded enough for important discussions and perfect for an ambush. Hanzo pressed Konan's shoulder, making her kneel. Yuto quietly used his Byakugan, sighing inwardly. Sure enough, the ground beneath her was rigged with explosive tags. "Yahiko, slow down! I can't, Nagato." The laughter of the young man with orange hair was clear even in the rain. "Peace is right in front of us, but you should slow down. It's quite disrespectful to appear so disheveled when meeting Hanzo." Yahiko and Nagato ran through the rain, their spirits high. Yahiko even laughed and shouted like a child. End the war and bring peace to the world. The long-held wish might come true today. The immense joy almost clouded their judgment, and even the regret of Konan not being able to witness this moment because she's on a mission was diminished. Finally, they arrived at the valley. It was flat in the middle, with towering rock walls surrounding it, a perfect hidden spot. As the birthplace of world peace, this place was undoubtedly suitable. "Wait! Yahiko!" Nagato suddenly extended his hand to stop his friend, a cold sweat trickling down his forehead. "Something's not right. Hurry!" However, while the Rinnegan was immensely powerful in high-level combat, its observational abilities as eyes couldn't compare to the Byakugan. He realized it too late. Above the rock walls, hundreds of shinobi appeared suddenly. Amegakure, Konoha, and Konoha's Anbu. At the center of a small hill, Hanzo, Danzo, and Yuto Hyuga, along with other powerful figures, looked down at Yahiko and Nagato. Konan knelt among them, her hands bound behind her back, her face covered in blood and dirt. In an instant, Yahiko and Nagato understood everything. Hanzo had no intention of negotiating with the Akatsuki. He wanted to join forces with Konoha to eliminate them. Hanzo stood behind Konan, pressing down on her shoulder. "To me, your organization is a huge problem. Yahiko, as the leader, you will die here." He drew a kunai and lightly pressed it against Konan's throat. The blade's tip pierced her skin, drawing blood. "If you resist, this woman will die." Bang! Hanzo threw the kunai, landing it precisely between Yahiko and Nagato. "Red-haired guy, use this to kill Yahiko. That way, you and this woman can both be saved." Nagato looked at the kunai, his head spinning. "No! Nagato! Don't worry about me. You two should escape," Konan shouted. "Nagato!" Yahiko suddenly spoke. His expression was strange. His dreams shattered, betrayed by his fellow shinobi, and the girl he loved was in the hands of the enemy. Yahiko felt his insides burning, his mind filled with thoughts of sacrifice. "Nagato, kill me. I can't save Amegakure or the world, but at least I can save you two, Nagato, Konan." Uzumaki Nagato's breathing became rapid. He stumbled forward, bent down, and picked up the kunai. Despite his arm strength capable of easily crushing rocks, his hand trembled as he gripped the kunai. "No!" Konan shouted again, ignoring Hanzo's increasing pressure. "Nagato! Kill me!" Yahiko's tone was severe, almost commanding, almost pleading. "Kill me, Nagato! No! Kill!" Yahiko's and Konan's voices intertwined in Nagato's mind. The three of them grew up together, knowing each other so well they felt like one. But now, Nagato seemed to lose his memory, unable to recognize who was speaking. "If it were you, why would you ask me to disregard your lives? We all know my greatest dream is to protect you two." "Nagato!" Yahiko's shout startled him. The red-haired young man instinctively turned his head, seeing his friend rushing towards him. In the next moment, Yahiko crashed into his arms. Squelch. The kunai stabbed into the Akatsuki leader's chest. No matter what, you and Konan must live. Blood bubbled into Yahiko's throat and lungs, making his voice unclear. You are the savior of this world. If it's you, you can definitely... He didn't finish his last words, collapsing weakly into the mud. Nagato stood frozen, unable to support his friend's body. Yahiko! Konan's piercing scream echoed in the rain. Hanzo chuckled. He had viewed the Akatsuki as a great enemy, but hadn't expected to annihilate their leadership so easily. Kill. He had no intention of keeping his promise. A barrage of kunai shot towards Nagato. Boom! Nagato lightly raised his arm, a barrier of repulsive force enveloping him. The pure power, fiercer than the Byakugan, surged forth, shattering the iron weapons. Not a single kunai reached him. He lifted his head, looking at the people on the rock wall. Only then did the Amagakure and Konoha shinobi see clearly. The red-haired young man had terrifying eyes, purple, with concentric ovals surrounding his pupils, like an inescapable hellish cycle. Those eyes... Hanzo was horrified. What he didn't know was that the shock was even greater among the Konoha side. That power to repel everything, it looked exactly like the moon god. It's coming! Yuto narrowed his eyes. He knew Nagato would soon rush here to rescue Konan, then get caught in the fire-style trap Hanzo had set up, destroying his legs and leaving him permanently disabled. Known as the legs of a shinobi, without them, even Nagato Uzumaki would lose about 30% of his combat power. Yahiko couldn't be saved, but your legs have operational space. Thinking about this, Yuto Hyuga took a deep breath and shouted, Nagato! The red-haired young man looked at him. Because of Konan, Nagato already knew Yuto had become the vice commander of Konoha's Western Front. Due to the development of Lion's Fang Bite, their relationship was quite close. He had planned to meet Yuto again to jointly research ninjutsu, but he hadn't expected their next meeting to be as enemies, soaked in blood. Looks like you remember me. Yuto chuckled. It's a pity we're now on opposite sides. He rubbed his palm slightly. In the crevices of his nails, there was a lot of powder he had previously stuffed in. This powder came from scraping the inside layer of a Boro mask. The inner layer of that mask had been coated with discarded God's mask by Yuto. It could block chakra sensing and Byakugan sight, an absolute dead object with no interaction with the outside world. Yuto fiercely struck Konan's back, the sound of bones cracking echoing in the rain. But he wasn't done. His hands turned into dense lightning, continuously hitting the woman's vital points and internal organs. Each time his fingertips pierced her skin, drawing blood. Hyuga style. Gentle fist. Even some soft-hearted Konoha shinobi couldn't watch. This was simply... no, this was outright slaughter. Finally, after completing a full set of gentle fist strikes, Konan was covered in blood. In the eyes of the Byakugan and sensory-type shinobi, Konan's body was filled with unseeable death holes, and her chakra no longer flowed in her meridians. These were characteristics of a body dead beyond doubt, even more so than a stopped heart. Take her back! Yuto coldly kicked Konan's corpse down the cliff. From now on, I have no ties with the Akatsuki. Ruthless. So ruthless. Even Danzo couldn't help but admire in his heart. Yuto was indeed a ruthless character. To eliminate suspicions of colluding with the enemy, he publicly slaughtered the woman. An Anbu from Konoha also glanced at Yuto. He was under orders from Hiruzen Sarutobi to secretly observe Yuto and see if he was connected to Moon God. Now, he could almost rule out Yuto's suspicion. His loyalty to Konoha was unquestionable. How could he possibly raid the village? Suspecting him was an insult to loyalty itself. As for Hanzo, he was dumbfounded by Yuto's series of actions. The traps I painstakingly set are now useless? Everyone on the rock wall had their thoughts, but below, Nagato had only one feeling. Pain. Extreme pain. He saw Yahiko and Konan as his entire world. Now his heaven and earth had collapsed. "Ah!" he roared, his eyes bloodshot. The hundreds of broken kunai embedded in the ground flew up, shooting towards everyone, most of them aimed at Yuto. The youth seemed to dodge calmly, but inside he was cursing. "Ungrateful bastard! Damn Uzumaki!